future ideas from the panel. Okay, good. Has everyone introduced themselves already?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, let's start at the far end with Joan.
Hello. I'm Joan Wendland, normally a game designer, so I have my lovely invention and showbiz and dream game up there. But the last time I asked my brain for a new game, it started a novel. And I have the chapbook with the first 5 chapters here. We do deals on that. And I'm from Northern Virginia, and I've known Rob for a few years. And I've just gotten off on the road too, so that's probably all the concurrence I have, sadly.
I'm D. Alexander Ward. I am an author of 2 novels, Blood Savages and Beneath Ash and Bone. I'm also an editor. Shadows Over Main Street, Volume 1. Volume 2 is currently in the works. Also, Gutted, Beautiful Horror Stories I co-edited with my colleague Doug Morano, which is up for Stoker tomorrow night, so wish me luck. I'm from Richmond, and yeah, I guess that's all.
I'm Jim McDonald. I am the author of the Home Summoning series, the Longbow Initiative series. I've got a new one coming out later this year. I also do some contemporary fiction. I also do nonfiction. I do have one coming out later this year that is a Business 101 book for writers, authors, creatives as well.
Hello, my name is Declan Finn. For my sins, I am a writer. I am the author of 15 books now. 2 nonfiction, a series called Love at First Bite, which is either vampire romance or urban fiction, for urban fantasy, depending on who you want to ask. I'm the author of the Pious Trilogy, P-I-U-S, like the Pope. I say it's a trilogy, but it's 5 books long, because things spiral. I write dystopian novel series and a few other things that I've even lost track of. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm Rob Alder. I write an online serial called Earthworld at earthworld.com. It's a fantasy illustrated prose and comic webcomic story mashup thing. It's been going on we're in our 11th year at this point, and it's entirely fan supported, and that's all I do. And we have illustrators and web people and stuff, and it's going great guns. So I've got 3 or 4 books in the can with that, and probably at least as many to go, and I don't see myself doing much of anything else for a while. So. But that doesn't mean that the idea generation machine is stuck in one story. So let's talk at the sort of 30,000-foot level here about the question at hand. Where do you get your ideas? Do we have I'm looking for a difference in school of thoughts, maybe. So if we would just start at the other end and just do a real brief first thoughts on that and see whether we uncover something, whether we're just like all organic thinkers or synthetic thinkers or whatever else. So let's start back with Joan.
Okay. I have 2 modes of idea generation. One is barely conscious. So like I'll have a dream and wake up and go, oh man, and write it down. Or I'll be washing my hair halfway from the shower, I'm like, hey. Or the most dangerous version, long distance driving, where you suddenly wake up and realize you have an idea and wonder how long you've been in this lane.
Or how you wound up in Virginia.
Yeah, actually I was designing a game once. I was coming from New Jersey to Virginia via Pennsylvania, and I remembered entering Pennsylvania, and I remembered seeing the sign saying, welcome to Virginia, and I'm like, I must have exited and re-entered twice from 2 different highways, right? To get to where I am, I don't remember any of it. That's terrifying. And the other thing I get is just, when things are just so formulaic, you just want to strangle something. And you're like, well, what if something completely different happened here? And that's worked for me also, especially since I've had my sleep disorders. I'm the crazy one at this time.
I would say that, I don't know, my ideas either come from, observations or odd notions that I've had, honestly. The other thing is I read a lot of historical information about, whether it's a local thing or an international thing. And I might be reading something about, something that a WPA writer wrote down in the 30s or the 40s, and that might spark an idea with me to exploit that local legend, to do something different with it, and maybe relocate it or whatever else. And then otherwise, I would say, yeah, just kind of observing things or just thinking about, weird stuff.
Mine come from all over the place. I consume stuff vociferously. I can't speak anymore today, and that's not a good sign. I'm well caffeinated. I read vociferously. I do a lot of documentaries. I do a lot of historical stuff. My minor was in cultural anthropology, so I have kept a lot of that going. But at the same time, I also traveled for 20 years and did a lot of consulting and a lot of work with different clients. And so sometimes when you're sitting in a meeting, you've been there for 3 days and nothing's gotten done, you picture different ways to kill them. And
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that, thank you.
and I mean, when you get to spend lots of time sitting in the airport and you get to watch lots of people, and you get to watch people sometimes at their best and sometimes at their worst, and it's all about what looks interesting, and all of a sudden then you have a book.
Yeah. I am the son of a philosophy professor, and I took a few classes as well. I sum it up as either formal viewpoint or functional mentality. You flash a pen at an engineer very quickly, they'll see a screwdriver. Rorschach tests like that. With writers, it's, come into a convention and how many different ways can I blow up this hotel? Because why not? It's just fun. That's how I did 2 of my murder mysteries, because one was a convention that looks nothing like one in New York, and the other is called RavenCon in Atlanta. Doesn't look like anything in Atlanta, honest. And the Pious Trilogy thriller series was a graduate paper I did in high school, and Dan Brown was popular at the time, and my first thought was, oh good God, I can do better than this, and I did. But basically, our minds are either active or even subconsciously looking for stuff to use.
Well, I was looking forward to this panel, and it looks like I am the odd one out, because I don't, although I do collect, ideas like a baleen whale collects krill as you just go through the ocean. They just accumulate, and I keep notes on them, and sometimes I'll have one that's just so compelling that I have to kind of write it down. I consider myself kind of a structuralist and quite, formulaic in the ways that I approach generating ideas. And the reason I was looking forward to this panel is because I feel like I've spent, hundreds of writing panels kind of downgrading the idea of the worth of ideas at all. Like they're so cheap or they're so easy or whatever, that execution is ultimately whether you're going to sink or swim with the story, and that it's all in, Harry Potter is the same as a magical girl anime or as Star Wars or whatever. It's like, oh, you've gone through, puberty, here are your powers, and that's the premise, now go fight the evil. And it's like, that works over and over and over again. I don't think we need to be afraid of cliche, but there's a great value in ornamental ideas, that the ways that these sorts of things are executed in the second level, the second tier, besides conceptual ones. But I find that coming up with a premise, the premise of Earthworld is incredibly cliche. It's just this obese 20-something gamer from Ohio is summoned into a magical world that works like a game, and they're trying to summon the perfect warlord, and they buy this very expensive spell, but they won't pay for the support plan, and they get this guy instead. they put him in charge of the army, and he doesn't know how anything works, and he has to figure out like the game-like world that's around him, where armies attack in turns, and they know what hex they're standing on and stuff like that. I mean, we make fun of things in our world for that being cliche. You know, it's like Tron, it's like Alice in Wonderland, it's like Wizard of Oz. So, you know, I wouldn't be afraid. Certainly wouldn't let lack of ideas stop you. But I am always going for, you know, a more pragmatic, synthetic approach. Like, I need this to happen, and I'm going to say these are the elements, and then I'm going to grind on those things until they sort of serve the story that we're going to. So I really do get like what everybody else is saying, and that's way more normal. It's like, you know, like, oh, I had this idea in the shower, and I was like, oh, well, what will happen if that came down from space? And I want to, you know, like, I get those too, but I don't actually have the time to use them. I'm always like looking for what the story needs or what the development needs. So I don't know. What about the second tier ideas? When you're writing in there and you're like, oh, well, I don't know how to get this guy out of the bank vault or whatever, you know.
Well, one, I think this is the first time I've ever been called normal at a convention. And to actually respond to one of your comments, ideas kind of are cheap. I'm sorry, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on this panel. How many of us have heard somebody say, I've got an idea for a book?
Oh. Do they sit down and take a year to write it?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, ideas kind of are cheap. Everyone can get them. As far as execution goes, again, sit down for a year, 3 months, however long, and try it. My execution style is basically, I've got the idea, I have designed the characters, and then I watch the characters go play. Because I spent, you know, I have now spent 3 days designing this character's backstory unto the 3rd generation before him, because I'm not OCD at all. And they just become lifelike, and it's like, go play, cause mayhem.
But that generates ideas as you go, too,
Yes.
doesn't it? I mean, as you start asking questions about your characters.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I mean, for me, it's there's only so many stories to be told. It's more about the execution is the other side of it. What are the hitches you use to pull people into the story? And it's always the characters, you know. But what are the hitches you can use to develop the characters in a way that's interesting? To me, that's the more interesting side of the idea. So here's my shameless plug. I wrote this book because I had been to police school for writers. So I'd spent 4 days studying how to kill people, get rid of the bodies, you know, nice evidence forensics, talking serial killers, all that kind of educational stuff for 4 days. And I'm on the plane going, I need to turn this into a business expense. So I need to write a murder mystery. And on the way home, and I had been looking for something to include in this particular universe, and I came home and had just come in from Think Geek. And it's a gnome about this tall, has a Tommy gun going, say hello to my little friend. And I said, that's it. Somebody's going to be killing gnomes and turning them into garden statues, and therefore this happened. It's not a matter, you know, the ideas, I've got a list of ideas I keep because sometimes it's a matter of what is it I need to plug a hole, and sometimes it's not a matter of I need the idea to craft an entire book around. It's I keep and log all sorts of ideas and short notes and stuff like that, that when I write myself in a hole, I can go grab that list and say, oh, that might work.
That book about the gnome statues, how serious is that?
It is written purely, a lot of the stuff that I write is based on ancient mythology pulled up to modern day. So it's all relatively modern day. It is very tongue-in-cheek. I love to write stuff that is dark humor, dark. Oh, it's all sick and twisted.
Shut up and take my money. How much?
Wait till just the end.
Yeah.
Before we start
I need a
conducting
copy too, please.
Absolutely. There's a typo on page 10 that the next edition fixes, by the way.
That's okay, I don't.
That makes this one collectible.
One of my I'll try to throw a copy to the publisher.
I guess I kind of come at things from a much less at first it's very unorganized. I may have an idea, it may be a title, it may be a character, and I go, wow, that's a really interesting character, what can I do with that? and I might try and write something around it. And I'll try, if I can get about 3,000 or 4,000 words out and I'm feeling into it, then I'll start plotting the rest of the book or story or whatever, and then, you know, but to some extent I do, once I start into it, I will, as he said, let them kind of play. Because, you know, I mean, the best thing about it is when you plan it a certain way and you get to almost to a certain point, you go, oh, nope, that's not going to happen. This is going to happen instead. That is way cooler. I think it's a real thrill when your character can still surprise you in the middle of the work. So yeah, I plan, but I'm not completely, you know, a stickler about sticking to the plan.
Well, I started LARPing in the mid-'80s. I wrote a couple of LARPs, and I LARPed heavily until I went to graduate school. And with a LARP, you set up this amazing premise. You let the people run around and figure out how it goes. And with this book, the woman stumbles across a secret society, and she can't figure out who's running it, and no one in the secret society seems to know either. So it's like a middleman with the organization Too Secret to Know. The middleman just accepts it. This girl's not accepting it. So she's like, well, who's running this place? Aliens? Could be. Is it? Could be. We don't know. Could be time travelers from the future. Oh my God, is it? We don't know. And so I was writing the book as the mystery she's trying to solve, and I realized eventually it was going to have to be 3 books. And I was like, wait a minute. She doesn't have to solve the mystery in this book. That's lovely, but I need to know where she's going, so I don't set something down here that won't jive. I was 75% through the plotting before I figured out who's running it. I'm like, oh, thank God. Because if I hadn't figured that out, I don't know what I would have done. But Rob, here's the flip side of that. There's a charming old movie with Burt Reynolds and Goldie Hawn about 2 best friends who live together but aren't yet married that are screenwriters, and they painted themselves into a corner like that. How do we get out of the bank vault? And they're having trouble in their relationship, which screws up their creative process. And when they finally work it out, you know, they're getting the smooching in at the end of the movie, and all of a sudden Goldie Hawn stops the smooching. She goes, wait, he didn't need to go into the bank at all. So sometimes you just have to back that out and say, if there's no way out of the bank vault, maybe I shouldn't have gone in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are actually describing something really close to my process, which is, you know, yes, smooching interrupted for ideas. How do I get my ideas? Just smooching. Smooch your way to success. Read my book.
Second edition.
There's a typo in the first. You don't want to follow that typo. It's in trouble. No, just the idea that you know, if I'm setting out to write a story that, you know, I'm looking to have a character that the reader cares about facing a problem that the reader accepts as real, and also that problem is resolved in a way that the reader accepts as valid. So it's like starting a joke without a punchline. That's a very, very terrifying thing to do. Some people can make a career out of that, comedians and writers, you know, both. But I tend to, you know, head out with the resolution in mind. And if I hit something better along the way, as you said, it's like, you know, like, oh, wow, I wish I thought of that to start with. That makes the rest of it very easy from here, but that's much more awesome than what I had in mind. So writing to the structure, I guess, to me, it's like having, I don't know, a rope to pull yourself up. It's anchored at the top of the mountain, and you're kind of moving up toward it. And I just try to make the ideas sort of serve the eventual resolution, like when you're telling a joke and it sets up a punchline. You know, you don't want to get there and go, oh, I forgot to say he was a priest. Do that, it's blown, right? So, you know, and with an online serial, I mean, you can't. I mean, you cannot. There's no drafting process at all. It's got to go. Like every single update has to be its own, you know, fully realized thing, and you can't go back and change it. So, are there times when you need your character to be in the bank vault? You can't just, you know, unwrite them out of it. We would say retconjure in Earth World. There's a branch of magic called retconjuration. But It's like, if you have to do that and you're stuck, do any of you have a formula that you go to in terms of, well, try this element, this element, this element, put them together, maybe they'll fit? Anyway.
My major.
Nope, go ahead.
Most of my solutions involve high explosives.
Well suited to bank vaults, really.
Pretty much. I don't usually have an awful lot of problems with, okay, I'm now stuck at this plot point, mainly because some of my characters are more stubborn than I am. And sometimes when that happens, it's just easier. Okay, I'm working on 3 projects at once. I'm going to go over to Project B, I'm going to come back to Project A, and I'm going to have a bloody solution. But usually the bloody solution is heavy on the bloody, or, again, high explosives. That's as close to a formula as I get, but I have some whacked out stuff. As far as things that don't go according to plan, my Pious series, I had one bad guy, it's going to be 1 book, this guy is going to die. I'm going to blow up an airplane hangar with him in it. Then it's like, crap, he went out the back door. Damn it. And I decided, okay, I'm going to follow this and see where it goes. And 2 books later, I finally killed the bugger.
In the airplane hangar? Did you bring him back to the airplane hangar? Did you build an airplane hangar around him?
No, he wound up dying somewhere else.
Oh.
But it's like, he just wouldn't bloody die. But that's... He didn't do what he was told. But yeah, that's why the 1 book turned into 5 books. So sometimes it helps to actually just let them wander wild.
You know, Rob, I had this idea for an assignment for her within the secret society, and it was going to be great, and she was going to be awesome. And I realized she couldn't do it. And so I decided to have her like go off in the entirely wrong direction.
Hold on, wait, let me stop you there. She couldn't do it for canon reasons or character reasons, or
well, she's
because it was dumb, or what?
problem solver. So for her to solve a problem, I have to know how to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like trying to solve Middle East peace, and I found out I couldn't. So
Explosion.
You and every other thing.
well, see, there's a character in this
I like
book.
the cut of your jib.
The troubleshooters in this book are followed around by people called consequentialists. So she'll go, I'll just do this, and her consequentialist says, and the result of that will be this and that. Damn it, I will do that, you know, and around and around and around, and then I'm getting stuck, and I'm like, okay, let me propose something so outrageous, it hurts my head. So I proposed it, and she broke her consequentialist. He went like into this fugue state. And the supervisors show up who are higher in the hierarchy, and they take him away to fix him. And they're like, you don't get this assignment anymore. We're going to give you something else. You don't ever say that to that man again. So that's how I got out of that one. It's nice to have layers of bureaucracy to hunt to.
Well, one of the tools, and I won't call it a cheat because sometimes it also goes to the character. I have a character in the main series who is not as smart as he thinks he is, because he's been told all of his life he's this smart, he's this special, and he's like, and no, even worse. So I mean, I've killed him a couple of times from his own stupidity, and he just keeps coming back. But the way it works is sometimes I create a mess that is such a mess. He's standing there and going, I've got the mentors, I've got the other people that come pull him out of some of these. So now I'm starting to gradually kill off the mentors, the forced position that happens by the 7th book, where he's got to be the one to fix it. Because the people who are coming and cleaning up his mess are gradually getting weaned off because of that. Well, frequently I've cheated because I've written myself in a corner and I've had somebody come in and go, how many times, all right, we're going to just fix this just this once, and this is how we're going to do it, and it's fixed. All right, he's fixed the problem, so he needs to go. Well, I'm starting to run out of people that can fix his problems. So,
Why can't they stick around after they fix the problem?
Then he doesn't learn. There
Ah,
has to be a
For
cost.
character progression.
There's a character
I thought he was
progression.
getting mad at them and chucking them or something.
That's only happened once. I mean, I gave him a dog that he didn't get the name till the end of the third book.
That's a very slow man.
He was like, why are you following me around? This is going to get you in trouble. This is going to get you killed too. But sometimes it's a handy tool to write yourself in the corner to write the way out and sometimes show that your character can't do something.
I have written, I mean, my main character is supposed to be a genius, and certainly I create problems for him that are, if not Middle East level, they are at least, I'm writing him as a character who is smarter than I am. And that is a very challenging thing to do, in the way that the cheat for writing a character who is smarter than you are in real life is to simply spend a lot more time thinking about the sorts of things than you give the character to think about. You know, if you take months to work out the solution that they see intuitively in seconds, the reader knows that they sort of would have taken those same months to think through it and can present that. So, like, but as a result of having such a character, I get the opposite problem. I get the, okay, well, this was what I had planned for him to do, and he goes, that's dumb. Why would I do that? I would never do that. Let's wave off of that. You come up with something better. Go spend another 3 months and you know, come back, because that's too dumb for me to do. You know, and that can be very disconcerting. You know, it's what we say when the characters run wild. Sometimes they come back at you and bite you on the butt. So. Yeah, that's a, yeah, do you want to take that?
Well, I know you do sequential art, so you've got to suddenly put all the other characters on stage doing things while you work out what that guy is going to do next.
I hope not to cut it that close, but sometimes we have. Yeah, the real problem is putting it up there wrong and then hearing about it instantaneously. That's why we need red conjuration.
I drew a guy's right hand on his left arm.
Oh man, yeah, that's just for art though, but we're talking like ideas and stories, right? So, so I would like to ask audience whether this is on topic or not, whether what we've said so far, because it's such a broad thing, whether anybody here was coming for, like, how do I think of an idea for a novel, or how do I think of ideas going through, or is there stuff we have not touched on that you were expecting to hear about, or you have had trouble in your own writing? Has anybody got a thing that's bugging you about ideas, or do ideas seem difficult for you guys, or is there do you want to know the magic formulas? And
How about the opposite problem, where you have so many ideas? How do you choose?
Oh,
Oh,
man.
that is a terrible problem.
Well, I will tell you, I have a list that's now over about 17,000 notes, and I periodically go back through and curate because I use the list.
Right.
And so I will find things that I can take, combine, because sometimes it's not a full-blown idea. It's a concept. It's something like that when you get yourself locked up, it's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. I may not get down to the idea I was thinking about, but I'm gonna hit that ideas list again to go take a look. If I did nothing but crank words on the page from now until the sun ended, I'd be about halfway through that list probably, because this is the list I've kept for the last 12 months.
It would grow as you went too.
Yeah,
wouldn't
I mean, it runs on a pretty continual basis, and every few months I'll go back through and I'll sort of curate and merge some stuff together, because a lot of the time if I just sort of hit, I don't usually have writer's block because I'm usually working on 2, 3, 4 projects at a time, both fiction and nonfiction.
Right.
So if I hit something that I need to just sort of matriculate on, I can hop over here. But other times it's I've got to get this out. I've got to go from point A to point Z. I'll go hit my magic list.
Right.
The important thing is to have ideas and have some way of getting back to them, because you may not use it for 10 years. But it's a lot better than having writer's block sitting there going, I need a way to write this way out of this, and nothing's coming to mind. If nothing else, going back and looking at that list will put you in that same creative process and give you tools to use that may not solve the specific problem, but it'll give you other ideas to put something together.
Awesome.
Well, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I told my brain to design a game, and my brain said, no dice, this is what I'm doing. So it's apparently choosing for me, which could be bad. But I also have a notebook, like, you know Mike Young?
I think so.
Black guy?
Yes.
He had a birthday party where he gave everybody Mad Lib character sheets. And I wound up with a character sheet that the very first line, I'm like, I can write an entire book about that first line. And so I wrote it down, and then I was like, I cannot go off on that wild hair. I have to finish this. And every once in a while I have an idea for that. I'm like, okay, I'll just write that underneath it. I have to go back to this. If I don't get this out of my head, I'm going to explode. So.
Yeah, I guess my selection process is, it's guided by my second area of geekery, and that is like new media business models. I've really been consumed for almost as long as I've been serious about writing. I've been consumed with the idea of how you make money writing, without, in a sustainable way, in a way that takes advantage of technology and that kind of thing. And so oftentimes my criterion for that is, I mean, it's going to sound mercenary, but it's really just, is this going to distract me from current plans to make money writing, or is this going to dovetail with that, and is it going to support that, and do I get new verticals out of this that can be integrated with what I'm already doing, and can I multiply the value of what I'm doing? So oftentimes I'll go, boy, that is a brilliant idea, and I'd love to go to a desert island, or if I was, given a prison sentence of 6 months or something and only a piece of paper, I could, probably write that and really enjoy myself, but, I can't do it right now because I got other stuff going on that's going to put the roof over the head.
You're being responsible creator.
I'm just trying to play it, so that we come out, still writing.
Yes. One, get a notebook, because yes, ideas happen, and if you're one of those people who, yes, I've had 6 different great ideas while I've been writing this chapter, but none of them fit, or it's congratulations, you have just created either a tangent or a Dickens novel. Put those off to the side. You might be one of those people who requires an outline. I generally don't believe in them, but if you need them, you need them. Heck, for my Love at First Bite series, I had the concept of a vampire pharmacist, who does victim-on-victim interactions, because you don't want to. You don't want to drink from the alcoholic and the guy on Ritalin in the same night. And if you want to have the diabetic the unmedicated diabetic for dessert, that's fine. But
It's too good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to fit him in, and I want to badly. But he just hasn't fit. But he's in the notebook. He ain't going anywhere. I've got him trapped. I have you now.
I do have an idea pile, but it's mostly because a lot of names in Earth World are puns. So we really pun it up in these names, and I'm like, every time I run into some phrase that sort of sounds like somebody's name and I can corrupt it into one, I'm like, oh, that'd be a good soldier's name, or that'd be a good, predictomancer's name or something. So I would put that in there, and it's lovely when I've got one in the idea pile and I'm like, oh boy, I need 3 magicians right now. Let's go to the idea pile, and here they are. Okay, fine. So that's very, you can create your own tools where that's concerned. Just, return to the.
Give me a Jasper Ford. He has a character named Thursday Next that people die around pretty quickly, and you always know they're going to die because they walk up and they go, "Hi, I'm Sergeant Lamb. This is Sergeant Slaughter." So you know.
Yeah, we had a Lord Manpower the Temporary. He died on the second page. I don't think that's really a spoiler. His battle crest was a big target.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of ideas, this whole thing, this is the first 3 books of 7. Yes, this started out as a short story. It became a 7-book series that the number 4 is targeted for release later this year. But the problem was I was about halfway through and talking about puns and titles, Bound and Hag, because a large part of it's about the old night hag syndrome and his power being stripped away. So going for the bad puns, the bad titles, it was one of those things. But it started as a short story I was trying to get out of my head, and then I was about 20,000 words in, and all of a sudden it was like,
Gone.
this is going to take a while.
Yes, there are times where you start writing a short story, it's like, dang, this is the prologue.
And you toss it away because it really doesn't mean anything.
Any of you written prequels? Any of your stuff?
Actually, well, this is not one of the other books in this, because this universe ties into this universe, and so I've actually sort of written it as this is sort of the human perspective. I have a really ineffectual law enforcement agency that goes back far in time and everything else, and this is just sort of the latest incarnation. I use them as a little bit of that prequel for some of the ancillary characters and how the other rest of the world perceives this.
Because you're starting with an endpoint in that situation, and you're looking for ideas to sort of contextualize what the reader feels they're familiar with, and it might blow away what they've thought that they understood, and it's just sort of. I found that to be a challenge when we went back and did book 0 to say, all right, well, how do I not do it like George Lucas, and how do I avoid the mistake? What are those mistakes? You know what I mean?
No Jar Jar.
Just like,
No Jar Jar.
Well, I was really looking at, could we not have Yoda and Chewbacca be best friends? Like that to me, like shrank the universe, and I was looking. That was like a category of character of mistakes that I was looking to avoid. At least I didn't want that effect. I wanted to feel like, we've implied this big universe, and I needed to keep it, like within our bounds and everything, and the expectations, while still making it not rehashing old material. There are different approaches, stuff that you have, they're different challenges and require different kinds of idea approaches, I think.
Yes, I tried, one of the book series I work on with a friend of mine, it's called The Last Survivors. It's basically a dystopian series, and he had, we're going to have San Francisco isolated and basically become almost escape from New York, although I like to think it's better. And, I had an idea for, this city is isolated and the rest of the world is mostly intact. It was only a small nuclear war. And it's like, okay, fine, you know governments have these things called satellites. Unless they're getting knocked out of the sky, governments at least know that San Francisco is here. So you're going to have at least a few people dump their politically inconvenient into this nice, convenient little place where you can just drop people off and hope they don't come out. And I created a character, and I started working on a prequel for the backstory of how this character ended up in no man's land. It ate book 1, quite literally. It, details went from here to here. So we don't need to introduce this in book 1. And suddenly, by the time I was done, it's like there was only about 50 pages left of book 1 that I hadn't utilized at some point.
I think world building, particularly when you're generating ideas off of your world, it's just something that it's important to do in order to present an internally consistent fictional world. But it can be fractal. It can be like the closer you examine it, the more there is, and an infinite process. And I always go back to story structure for limiting that, so that I don't, But unfortunately, it ends up being like, book 2 of Earthworld takes place entirely within one day. And that's not the scale that I intended to tell an epic it's all one battle, all one day, sun up to sun down, and that was not my plan when I set out. It just got to be complex enough that what I had anticipated as being Act 1 became an entire book. Just know that that's happening to you. Right, you gotta, it's good, if it's happening to you, it's like, okay, I need to come to terms with that, and that's the new plan, okay, you know, but, yeah, it can be a little bit, disconcerting when that creep is inevitable, but, yeah, Bill?
Ralph, does it make you feel better that I think Free Fall, did you take the record of the longest day in comics from Free Fall?
Oh, geez, no, I don't think so, no.
You're not alone.
Boy, oh boy, yeah, no, I mean.
And it was done well,
yeah.
So you're still okay.
As long as it came together and we had that resolution, I was happy enough with it. I just needed to know as soon as possible that was happening to it. Okay, so while we have a little bit of time, I'm watching the clock. How much time do we have?
We've got 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Well, I wanted to throw it a little bit to Joan and to anyone else who's worked in non-story media. I know because Joan has primarily made games. We made a game together, and that was a very interesting idea-generating process because it didn't start out being a sluggy game. It started out being a concept. But anybody else here who has worked on things that are not stories but required complicated ideas or interesting ideas, like with a board game or a video game or a movie?
Well, I actually got a project that is in the launching phases right now. The blog's up. First articles are hitting and landing. It's basically business 101 for writers, artists, that sort of thing, and putting together the complexity of all that packaging for people in a language that people who have no business experience, who have no technical experience and all that can digest, understand, and use effectively. So, you know, I'm been running articles on the blog and stuff for a while. The book comes out later this year. It's going to be a podcast and a video series and all of that from a training and educational series. And it's modified from other stuff I've done as nonfic for people who are in business and practice and that sort of stuff as well, modified down for this industry. And I also do a lot of standard media and articles and other things along those lines as well. So when you're trying to craft a series of articles on a given topic, you know, when you're talking research and curation and building that up over a series of time articles on something that's non-fic, then facts kind of become, you know, a bit of a pain, but apparently really are not important anymore. But to craft things like that, and that process of research and methodology and everything else helps me craft the fiction side, because I flip between the two. It's not unusual for me to work on 5 projects at the same day.
And you're limited in the medium there. You have to know, like, what's a good idea for a topic. Am I going to be able to fill half an hour, or whatever on a podcast, or is that going to fall short? We're going to cover everything in 10 minutes, or that's 6 podcasts or something, you know, like kind of knowing the bounds of your medium as a way of shaping the idea before you begin to work on it is probably a good lesson to learn for all of us off the bat.
Well,
Sorry.
no, go on.
I love apples to apples a lot. And almost everybody I know is an engineer or a scientist. And they're not very word-oriented and they don't want to play with me. So I was like, how do I make apples to apples that engineers will play?
Cards Against Humanity.
This was before Cards Against Humanity. And my father and I will never play that game together, I swear to you. That will not occur. But Ex Machina,
Oh, I've got that.
and he's not my relative. Would you like
She'll
to
take your
chill?
money too.
Did you feel it was like apples to apples?
I just saw that and I thought, this looks wonderful. And I have the horrible problem of trying to find people to play games.
Right.
The Hack RVA Workshop Club has started having their monthly table game night. I will bring it at some point. I just have to get the ADD engine to skip a beat and actually let me remember.
Okay. I find putting it into your car and leaving it there for like a month until it's time is the only way that works for me. but, you know, you're like, okay, we still need the whole, you know, fight for your card thing, but it's got to have some element of engineering in it, or my friends will not play it. And so, you know, you've got a goal, and you're like, well, how will I mess around with that goal? And so there are requirements that people have to build to, and then you're pitching your invention. And people all the time say to me, where did you get all these wacky ideas for the impossible inventions? And I'm like, I want everything in this game. Everything I ask for as requirement cards is stuff I want in the real world. It's the equivalent of a man going, where's my jetpack? Except I didn't want a jetpack, I wanted a teleporter, because jetpacks take too long. And there's things in here like the personal temperature controller, so this room's cold, but it would be like warm right where I am. You know. And there is a bladder snooze button, so you can get all the way through Lord of the Rings and have a drink. I need that. And I'm sure other people don't need that. The self-cleaning blender, because I like smoothies, but I hate cleaning up. You know. So you're like, okay, you start with an idea. Yeah, I want apples to apples for engineers. And then you start saying, well, if I was an engineer and I could build anything I wanted, you know, what would I want? And you just, in that sense, I engineer the games, but it's more creative for the books, but the games are more rigidly engineered.
But isn't it interesting how the structure that you created for yourself then allowed you to sort of hang all of these, you know, come up with these independent kind of nugget-like ideas? It's like how, you know, the premise of the story was, okay, we're going to have a Christmas tree. We're going to have a tree, and we're going to hang ornaments on it. And these, you know, you create each one of these ideas, which is cool and funny in its own right and can be illustrated in an appealing way or whatever. But they're all sort of serving the same overall structure. And then in the end, you want sort of the pretty tree, but it's like, okay, this branch is empty, and I've got an idea for this and this and this. And along the way, so you've given yourself it's an idea generating idea.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny you should say Christmas tree, because there's a violent homicidal Christmas tree in this game.
So I have a question. Why have you not turned some of those games into books? Because you've got to figure out a bunch of engineers sitting around, and I hope there was some bourbon involved, going at it, and how can you not turn that into a book or at least a good story?
Gosh, I figured they were perfect the way they were. I guess I could put that in the notebook with everything else. I do know that this game, which is about sleeping, was based on my experience of sleep, which at the time I designed it, I didn't know I had 2 sleep disorders. So before I even got diagnosed, I got an order from Portugal. I'm like, what? And it was a woman who works with children who have sleep disorders, and she wanted the game to describe to the children what was happening. And I still hadn't gotten onto it. It's been years before someone strapped me down with a million wires in my head and said, you were doing this so wrong. We are not even sure why you haven't killed yourself. Apparently, when you sleep as poorly as I used to, I'm suicidal. And I was like, gosh, I'm cranky before I find my coffee.
All right.
Never occurred to me to kill myself.
Final questions or thoughts from the panelists either?
No, I think you did a great job. You could, you've all got long lists of ideas, and instead of reading the lists, you all went into how you created the list, which was really helpful.
Well, I mean, I hope that it can
Let
add
you
world.
steal our ideas.
I'm willing to sell them, though.
I'll trade you.
I'm always open. I'm easy. I can be half the price.
Yeah, I mean, no, like we said, I think the process, it can be easy to generate the ideas. The execution is really the challenge, and that, you know, we could have. I've had panels that were like a million idea session, you know, like let's generate as many ideas for a hit series or whatever, and it turns out, you know, that with some basic synthesis of, okay, this is Super Mario meets Jaws. You know, it's like, okay, what? Okay, well, actually, you know, that sounds pretty cool already, you know? So it's like, how would that work? And what's the main character? What's the problem? And suddenly you've got yourself, you know, what could be turned into a hit novel or series or television show or movie or something like that. Now it's on the writer. to make it come true in a way that the audience enjoys. So I guess.
No, I mean, I think that's the most important part of all of it is ideas are great, but you still have to be able to execute.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So hang in there, practice. If you don't, oh, the one last thing I wanted to say about ideas was you can often tell one of the marks of somebody who is not really a writer but thinks they are is somebody who is extremely protective of their ideas for those reasons. When you see it like, I'm in this forum and I'd like some writing advice, but I need to be really, really vague because I don't want somebody to steal my idea. Nobody's going to steal your idea. We all have these folders full with this. We all said, it's like, okay, fine. We'll just
Can I add one thing from Andy Looney, because it's just so precious. Andy and I were talking at a party, and someone came up to us and said, "How do you get all your ideas? I mean, how do you get ideas?" And we both looked at him with these really haunted faces, and we said, "How do you make them stop?" It's like in sync.
Perfect. Well, and the only thing I would add to that is when you start talking about that, if you really want to do an experiment of everybody's like, no, I've got the idea that's never been done before. Really, you haven't read enough. But the other part, go do an improv experiment where you take 5 people like that, put them in 5 different rooms, give them the exact same idea, characters, everything else, and you will have 12 different stories come out of those 5 different people.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit here and pitch all the stuff I'm working on right now, and you look and go, okay, yeah, it's funny, but it's how do I execute on the idea?
Yeah, it really is, because it's not really the idea that they buy the book for. It's to fall in love with the characters.
No, the notebook I'm buying entirely for the idea.
I
Sorry.
said corrected. Yes, the gnome book is worth the $5 for the idea alone. You're absolutely right. Well, but I'll judge the execution. The gnome execution.
Please do.
All right. Well, thanks you guys for coming.
I have 3 one-page excerpts if anyone's interested.
Now buy the gnome book. Buy all the gnome books he has.
Jen was my timekeeper saying like, hey, why aren't you out there? Okay, so that's how I got